In my opinion, the trading flows have adjusted a lot quicker than the banks, especially the trade finance space. I think they're still in that process. It's become very difficult for both jurisdictions to carry out business in terms of the financing, which meant that both of them had to go more into self-financing or barter transactions, or deliver to the destinations and take all the risks on themselves. So a lot of companies and a lot of banks tried to divert their flows, so just not completely lose this chunk of business, but divert their flows to Dubai, to Turkey, to those countries. Many banks have realized what they've lost, so they're becoming much more aggressive. They're trying to look for different customers. They're trying to explore maybe some regions which they haven't, which were too small previously.
Hello everyone. Today our speaker is Natalia Haas, Managing Partner at Mercator Commodities. Together we will discuss the financing of trading activities in the current period of global uncertainty due to the war risks. Hello Natalia.
Hi Marina.
And my first question is, how has the war in Ukraine affected Western trade finance banks? And what has been the impact of trade on trade financing?
Thanks for the question. So it definitely affected the banks a lot, and I think this effect has really been overlooked because everybody focuses really on the effect of the trade flows, the actual war risks, so whatever happens to the goods, whatever happens to the shipping flows, but nobody really sees how much business has really left the Western trade finance banks, how many companies have left the Western space, how much talent has shifted to different places. And I think this impact is actually a lot larger than the actual trading flows impact. So in my opinion, the trading flows have adjusted a lot quicker than the banks, especially the trade finance space. I think they're still in that process. So naturally, because a lot of sanctions have targeted or have worked through the SWIFT mechanism, which is very paramount, which is very big for the Western banks, and if you look at the trading flows, the ships and if you want to find a ship owner, you will find a ship owner with a flag of a country. There's a lot of flags, there's a lot of jurisdictions that they're using. So it's a lot easier to find a ship than to find a bank which would execute your transaction, especially if you're talking US dollars, especially if you're talking euros. It's becoming a lot more difficult. So I think the banks really had to implement all the measures. They had to become very strict on compliance, not only on the companies they're managing, but also on their shareholders, also on their counterparties, also on their transport companies and brokers. So yeah, that meant that they really had to offboard both Russia and Ukraine because on the one hand, there's war risk. On the other hand, of course, there can be different implications on the shareholders. You really have to trace where the commodities come from and which territories these commodities touch, which sort of meant that the banks really had to offboard both countries, as well as any subsidiary flows which could be implemented out of other countries. So it's become very difficult for both jurisdictions to carry out business in terms of the financing. Which meant that both of them had to go more into self-financing or barter transactions, or deliver to the destinations and take all the risks on themselves, which meant that only the bigger players managed to survive, and which also meant that there's a lot more pressure in the domestic market on the suppliers. But not only did it hurt the domestic economies, it also hurt the banks as well here. So I think in many cases, up to 20-30% of the business, they had to really leave and offboard and cross out. And yeah, that means that they really have to compensate for those flows, especially in the current environment of high interest rates and more challenging economic environment, business environment in general.
What alternative strategies have emerged for banks to replace SWIFT transactions?
So there has been, first of all, of course, just changing the jurisdiction. So a lot of companies and a lot of banks tried to divert their flows, so just not completely lose this chunk of business, but divert their flows to Dubai, to Turkey, to those countries. But on the one hand, the banks there work with, or are used to working with a much larger number of currencies. There's a lot of currency risks involved, which means that it's very difficult to work in trade finance. So you can maybe pay for your commodity, but you cannot finance your commodity, because then which commodity do you take? Can you actually open an LC? Because somehow if you go into the LC structure, somehow you will touch the SWIFT. Which currency do you use? How you hedge those currency risks in the meantime? So all these questions have to be answered, and basically the banks have become a lot less risk averse. A lot more risk averse. So they're willing to take a lot less risk on themselves, which meant that all these transactions are basically non-financeable for those jurisdictions. So on the one hand, yes, they have moved to different jurisdictions and tried to maybe reduce their flows but put more cash in it. On the other hand, of course, there's a big need right now for barter transactions, where you just park your currency in a country and try to use it for a counterflow. So if you bring, I don't know, your agricultural commodity to Turkey, then you have to export your manufactured commodity from Turkey or substitute those flows, and they're becoming very complex as well, because sometimes you cannot bring a Turkish commodity into Ukraine or Russia, so you have to buy something else in another country and bring that to one of those countries. So it's becoming very complex, the ways to solve that problem. But essentially what has happened, there has been an exit out of the trade finance space, and a lot of companies had to basically take the financing onto themselves or on their private investors.
And how has the escalation in the Red Sea impacted the financing sector, and what adjustments are Western banks making to navigate these challenges?
So the Red Sea situation hasn't changed the banking space that much, because again, this is the companies which don't want to go there, they don't go there, which means that for them nothing really changes. And the counterparties which go into the Red Sea, they probably already have been offboarded by the Western banks and already found their alternative structures. But nevertheless, we are talking about the world. So many banks have realized what they've lost, so they're becoming much more aggressive. They're trying to look for different customers. They're trying to explore maybe some regions which they haven't, which were too small previously, such as the Baltic states, or maybe some African flows, such as cashew nut flows. So the banks are becoming more aggressive, but at the same time, the guys who sort of thought, okay, look, the situation is stabilized, and let's maybe look how we can structure the comeback into the Black Sea or into one of those regions, they probably just got scared off. So I think it didn't really change much, but it really stopped the situation from improving, and maybe some adjustments from being made. Because again, I think at least in trade finance space, there's right now it's more of a seller's market. Sellers being the banks with their money, which they'd like to use for financing. Their business model is really struggling. Of course, the situation Red Sea adds to their certainty and sort of keeps this status quo in terms of how you view the risk, how you view your counterparties, so it basically adds up to the alternative hubs and to their strength in carrying out the transactions.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for your insights. Hope to see you in our next interviews.
Thank you.